Haki. Haki mkononi. Termination of labor. An employer is required to give reason of termination to the worker. If the employer fails to do this, the termination will be considered unfair. Before terminating the employment of an employee or summarily dismissing an employee, the employer should hear and consider any explanations or reasons which the employee may give. Reasons for termination. For specific reasons. The employee is incapable of performing the job. Two. After receiving a final warning letter, the employee continues with misconduct or indiscipline. 3. The employee suffers from prolonged illness that makes him or her unable to perform his or her normal duties. Summary dismissal. An employee may be summarily dismissed for gross misconduct. Gross misconduct includes 1. Absence from the workplace without permission. 2. Being drunk at the workplace. 3. Neglecting to perform any assigned work. Four. Use of abusive language or behavior in the workplace. 5. Failing to obey a lawful and proper command that is within the employee's scope of work. 6. Arrested for a crime that lands the employee in jail and is not released within 14 days. 7. Committing a criminal offense against the employer or his or her property. 8. Summary dismissal takes place without a termination notice. It is immediate. Redundancy. This means the loss of employment where the services of an employee are no longer needed. Before declaring an employee redundant, the employer must meet the following conditions. The employer must notify the trade union if the employee belongs to one, and the labor office in that area. If the employee is not a member of a trade union, the employer notifies the employee personally in writing and the labor officer. Before declaring an employee redundant, the employer has to consider the work experience, ability, job group, and reliability of the employee. The employer should give the employee 1 month notice or 1 month's salary in place of notice. The employer should pay for the remaining leave days in cash. The employer should pay the employee severance pay of 15 days' salary for every year worked. Termination notice. If you are paid daily, either the employer or the employee can terminate the contract at the end of any day without notice. If you are paid periodically at intervals less than a month, for example every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, either the employer or employee can terminate the contract by giving notice in writing equivalent to the intervals of payment. So, if you are paid every 2 weeks, give a 2-week notice in writing of termination of employment. If you are paid at intervals of 1 month or exceeding 1 month, either the employer or employee can give a 28-day notice in writing of termination of employment. However, if you have a contract that clearly states when your services end or the period needed to give a termination notice for your contract, then you should follow what your contract states. If an employee who receives notice of termination is not able to understand the notice, the employer should orally explain the notice to the employee in a language the employee understands. The employee should have another employee or union representative of his or her choice present during this explanation. If an employee or employer terminates a contract without notice, then the following happens. Employer must pay the employee what he or she would have earned during the notice period. For example, if you are fired without notice, your employer must pay you 1 month full salary. Employee: if you decide to end your contract without giving notice to your employer, then you will pay your employer what he or she would have paid you during the notice period. For example, if you leave without notice, you must pay your employer 1 month full salary. For more information on your labor rights, write to info@kituo.sheria.or.ke or SMS 0700 777 333.